How's it going, guys? Today I've got something special for you. Animation has always been near and dear to my heart, but it's a little bit of a daunting task to a lot of people who may be interested in it. But what I want to show you today is an amazing program that I have been using for the past 10 years. I started with a program called Anime Studio. Now the version I got at the most recent time was Anime Studio 5. I had the debut edition, which was the cheapest one. It was about 50 bucks. Eventually I moved on to Anime Studio 7 Pro, and this past year I bought Anime Studio Pro 11. Now the most recent version of Anime Studio had a name change. They updated the name to Moho Studio, and that's the 12th edition of this program. Since they changed their name to Moho, the Anime Studio Pro 11 dropped dramatically in price, and now it's, for the professional version, it's extremely affordable. So I'm putting a link in the description, the cheapest price I could find on Amazon for this program, so that if you like what you see in this video today, you can pick yourself up a copy of that as well. So I'm going to be doing a video about the process of character design. You know what? It's going to be a lot easier if I show you. Come on. Okay, so I've got Anime Studio opened up here. Now, if you're not familiar with the program, that's okay. I'm going to show you what you need to do in order to make your first character. We're going to keep things simple. We're going to make a very familiar character. We're going to do Catbug. So we're going to go over here to Import Image, open the Catbug file. Look at that guy. Everyone loves him. So next we go to Layer, and scale that down just a little bit so you can fit in the screen. Okay, so that's a good picture to work from. Nice clean lines. It's an easy character. Now, where do you begin? Well, let's turn on Layer 1. Now, let's think about this for a minute. When you're working with layers, you want to remember what things are on top and what things are at the bottom. So, as a base, let's keep his body separate and then his head on top. So all the way around here, we'll have a little circle. It'll be kind of an egg shape. And then we'll have his head on top, his arm behind the body, and this arm in front of both the head and the body. The legs we'll worry about in a minute. Okay, first things first, let's select the color of his body. Next, we'll take the curvature or add point, and let's start here. Let's go all the way around. We can always adjust these after. I think right now it's kept at sharp corners, but that's okay. We can fix it afterward. And you literally just drag it from point to point. Let's have one end here, where he has that little taper. Okay. Now I don't have this at auto weld. Auto weld is when it automatically connects points together once they meet. That can get annoying, so instead I drag it and then press spacebar to finish the connection. So now this is a full shape. I didn't fill it, so let's fill that now. The easiest way to sample the colors is with a swatch. Now you can change your swatch here. I want to use Catbug as the actual swatch and just be able to go back and forth and select. So let's go here, custom image, select Catbug, open. There we go. Now on this side, all I have to do is tap on it, and now I have the color. So that way I don't have to do any guesswork. Alright, let's fill that circle. There we go. Remember, it's still not quite an oval yet. But that's okay. Now we can go in and tweak some of those edges. Okay, that's starting to look alright. Let's move this a little. The nice things about vectors is you can edit them at any time. Okay. That's not too bad. Now you might be wondering, hey, that's not lining up with this head, but that's okay because we're making a separate vector for his head. Okay, so now we're going to have an outer shell part. But before we go too far, instead of this being layer 1, let's rename it. We're just going to name it body. Let's turn the visibility off again, and let's go back to add points. Let's select the color, take off sharp corners. This time we'll have autofill ready. Now don't worry about not lining up perfectly right away. When you're adding points, you kind of want to add them to the areas where things start changing. Okay. Now let's move our points. Let's have this over here. We'll sharpen that since it does get a little bit sharper around the corners. Since this is the shell, we want it to be hovering above just a little bit. Fill. And there we go. Now we can see his shell. Let's move these points out just a little bit. Okay. Not bad. Actually, let's remember that this curve is only because his head is there. Let's move that in a little bit. Because since we're animating this, his head will be able to move around a little bit as well. Okay. Next, let's make these spots of his. Okay, his body's looking okay right now. But one thing that does need changing is the thickness of these lines. So let's select the whole thing all at once and go here. This is the line width tool. So let's increase it just a little bit. Though not perfect, it's pretty close. We can worry about perfect afterward. Okay, so that's about that for the body. Oh wait, one more thing. Right here. So let's go in here. Move this up just a little bit. Move this over here. Now we're going to remove this line without breaking it. To do that, you go to this right here. Actually, not that one. Right here. Hide edge. Now for just this portion, we're going to click that and hide that. Now this part, we're going to edit the width of that and kind of make it taper. There we go. So now it's doing close to the same thing. Remember that the movement of his body will change the proportions of certain lines. So we don't need to worry too much about it being exact. Remember, we're going to make this our own in the end. Next, we're going to make his head. So let's go back to add lines. We're going to create a new layer, vector. We're going to name it head, for obvious reasons. Okay, let's turn the visibility of the body off. Now we're going to make his head start right around here. Remember, we need to make this invisible, so we're going to join that edge right there to that point, to this point, to that point. One more there, here, 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 and finally here. Now that's not the color we want, so let's go back here, click our swatch, boom, now it's blue. Nice cat bug blue. Okay, so his head's on top there, but we know that his head and his body are pretty much the same. Now, people don't need to know that they're separate. If we go into here and then hide this edge here and this one as well. Let's take this one. Okay. So now it pretty much looks like one body. Okay. Now remember, we need to fix the line width, but we're going to do that afterwards so that's all uniform. Now remember, you can turn the visibility off and still work with the vectors. So let's make his ears next. Let's change these to points. And then only curve up the top one. Okay, that's pretty good. Select the whole thing, space. And kablam. Now, if you were thinking that this looks wrong, you're right. That's because this ear is a shape above the head, because we made it afterward. But that's easy to fix. Select it by clicking on it with this right here. This is select shape. Now, all you have to do is cycle with the arrow keys and press down to push it a shape down. So now it's below the head. Perfect. Now let's copy this. Well, you can press Control C or select copy here, and then paste with Control V. Let's rotate it a little bit. Move it right over here. Pretty much perfect. Now, let's do the same that we did with the other one. Select shape, and then down one. Alright, so you got his ears. Next, we got to work on that cute little face of his. Since they're not perfect circles, I'm just going to use the Add Point tool. Zoom in a little bit, and let's adjust this. Let's curve these sides out a little bit. That looks like it's just about right to me. Perfect. Since both eyes are pretty much exactly the same, let's copy it and then paste it. Perfect. Next, his mouth. For the mouth, though, we're going to do something a little different. We're going to create a switch file. We're going to name that mouth. Now, what a switch file does, now this is important. In order to have mouth movements, you need to have separate files of the mouth, unless it's a different kind of mouth. Sometimes you can just move the vectors around. But when you want to do lip syncing, one of the easiest ways to do it is with a switch file. So we're going to add another vector for this. We're going to call this one open. Now it's in the folder for mouth. Alright, so now select that vector. Let's turn the visibility for the head off. Now we're going to draw the mouth. Point there, a point here, one more point there, and a point there. Now let's fix the curvatures of this. This being sharp, that being sharp, and that being sharp. Let's curve this one out, curve that. Good to go. Now for the bottom part, let's have it from this point down to here, and then to, let's put it here. Have that inside the mouth color. Now let's curve this just a little bit out like that. Okay, turn the visibility off so we can see that tongue again. Have a curve here and a curve there. Okay. Now for the inner tongue color, select that shape, boom, boom, and we're good to go. Now let's go in here and tweak the curves a little bit. I think that's pretty good. Now that'll just be the first mouth. So I'd say it's coming along pretty good so far. Next, we have to work on the arms. Thankfully, that's one of the easiest parts. So let's close the mouth. Let's go down to body, add a vector layer, and let's do the left arm first. Now it's important you remember what you name these, because sometimes people think left arm from the perspective of the character or left arm in perspective of the screen. It all depends what you're going to remember best yourself. In my case, I'm going to use left arm in proportion to the screen. Select our catbug blue. Now remember, this layer needs to be underneath the body. Go. Let's make sure this is a nice curve. Let's have this come to a little bit more of a point. A little bit curved out here. Perfect. Alright, now for the right arm. This new vector layer. Right arm. Okay. Now remember, this needs to be above the body. Connect them here, and good to go. Now let's hide this edge right there. Now they're oddly shaped, so we're going to take the curve of that and bring it all the way down to a sharp edge. This one we'll bring down just a little bit as well. Okay. Well, that's looking pretty good. So his head and his body back on. Oh, and we need to make sure the arm is above the head as well. Let's take a look. Let's turn off that bottom layer. Not bad. It is coming along. Okay. The one thing that we do need to make sure that we do is take these and adjust the thickness to where it should be. There we go. Alright, last we have the legs. New layer, vector. Let's turn this back on. And now we work on his little stubs. Now these should be at the very bottom. Let's do left leg first. Boom, boom, boom. Alright, easy peasy. Stub this out a little. Perfect. Select the whole thing. Control C. New vector. Right leg. And then Control V. Kaboom, kaboom, kaboom. Let's rotate this a little bit. Alright. Thickness is all good to go. Now let's have this edge kind of taper off on his head. Make sure it's not all selected. And then we'll go like this. Okay. So change that on his right arm as well. So have that taper down just a wee bit. Okay. And there we have it. We have Catbug. Not bad. Let's have a little preview. Okay, his left arm looks a little too thick. Sometimes it's hard to tell in the regular old vector area. So let's go here, left arm, and then let's taper that down just a smidge. Okay, Control R to render. Not bad. Look at him. Okay, next, which is the key part in Anime Studio, is the bones. So let's go over here, create a bone layer, and we'll call this one Catbug. Let's drag all, shift, and then click each one of the layers, then we can drag that in to the Catbug bone layer. And like that, he is now in there. So we can do this to turn invisible. Looks like my lines are a little bit thicker, but that's okay. Everything is okay. Just make sure I didn't miss anything. Looks like his arms do taper off just a little bit more than I have in here. So, you know what? Let's actually fix that. Let's go back in, right here. Let's have this taper, and taper. Now let's drag this over here, just over here. And let's bring the thickness down just a smidge as well. Okay. There we go. Okay, so when making bones, this is where things get interesting. To be able to move the bones properly, we need to take these layers and move them aside for a minute. So let's take this arm, move it all the way over here. This arm, all the way over here. I forgot I have this on. That messed me up. Right leg, move it to here. Left leg, move it to here. There's a reason I'm doing this, and I'm going to show you in 1 second. Now we're going to make our main parent bone, which you usually always want to start with like the backbone, the bone that everything else is connected to. So let's have a bone start here, and then a bone here. And one more thing I'm going to do, just for a little extra control. Let's go back to his head. Let's take his ears and move them up here. And you're going to see why I'm going to do this. Go back to the bones. Okay, the red one is the parent bone that the next bone that you make will be connected to. So next, we'll do the ear. Okay, so we don't want this ear to connect to this ear, so let's go back and select this bone. Oops. Alright, that's now the parent bone. Now we're going to click on that. Select this bone. New bone here. Select this bone. New bone here. Back to this bone. Bone here. Parent bone. And final bone. Okay. Now, believe it or not, when you complete a character, it's pretty much just like this. Now, I'm going to do a separate tutorial for the mouth, because that gets into a little bit more advanced animation. But now, this is very important. In Anime Studio, there is a frame 0. That is basically your construction frame. It never shows up in the final product. If you move over a frame to frame 1, let's click that. Now, we can move all these bones back to where they belong. But before that, let's go back to frame 0. One important thing I forgot to do is set the bone's strength. This is the radius in which the bone controls. Okay, now that that's done, let's go back to this frame. Okay, now you can move the bones back to where they belong by hitting this Transform Bone tool. So let's go and move all of these back in frame 1. Okay. Looks about right to me. Now, this is the Manipulate Bone tool. Should just be able to move these around. Now you can wiggle around his little bones. You can almost hear him talking now. Okay, so now that you have that under the way, let's move up 24 frames, which is 1 second. And let's move his arm down to here. And this arm to here. Let's have his head move just a wee bit, and then his ear like that. Let's go to 48, which is the next second over. Let's actually have his hand back to here and go to 36, which is the in-between frame. I'm going to have him waving a little faster. You can scroll back and forth. Look how excited he is. Let's delete this one. Let's go back to here. Copy that. And then Control V to paste. Let's go back to here. Control C. Move here. Control V. And now we've got Catbug waving. Look how happy he is. Now let's export the animation. Well, that was just a quick tutorial, guys. I hope you liked it. I'm going to show you how to do a little bit more in Anime Studio and how easy it is to set up characters for animation. This isn't the most detail-oriented video that you'll see, but it will give you a quick guide to start things up real quick. And it really shows how much you can do with just this program and how really easy it is to go about it. So that's the video, guys. I hope you liked it. I hope I taught you something today, and maybe even gotten your interest piqued when it comes to animation and character design. It's not that hard, and there are some pretty easy to use programs out there like Anime Studio. So like I said, I'm putting a link in the description so that you can pick yourself up a copy if you were interested. I'm going to be doing a few more videos in the near future about using this program, and also tips and tricks for animation in general. If you liked the video that you saw today, don't forget to like and subscribe. Helps me out a lot, and hopefully I can help you out a little bit more in the future. You guys have an awesome day.